Okay, welcome to this episode of the Marketing Guides for Small Business podcast. I'm Jen. We've got Ken, Paul, Dan, and Ian here today. And the topic we're talking about is creating repeat customers who refer you. Now, guys, it sounds a little bit like the unicorn podcast here. I mean, having customers that refer you are one thing. Having customers that repeat business with you are another thing. Is it actually possible to have both with one customer? So we'll be discussing that. We'll be talking about strategies, tips, and maybe some things to avoid as well as you try to implement this procedure. So Ken, I want to start with you. And I looked at some stats here. You know, marketing is very much arts and science. So here's the science bit here. So I'm going to read some stats to you, and then I want to get your opinion and your thoughts on this. So acquiring a new customer can cost 5 times more than retaining an existing customer. So increasing customer retention by 5% can increase profits from 25 to 95%. So that's huge. Now, the success rate of selling to a customer you already have is 60 to 70%, while the success rate of selling to a new customer is 5 to 20%. So aside from all the math, what are some of the reasons a business owner needs to seriously develop a strategy for repeat and returning customers?
Yeah, well, I mean, plain and simply, it is the fastest way to generate revenue. We talk a lot about the marketing hourglass in this podcast, and basically, you don't have to go through the whole know, like, and trust process because your existing customers should already know, like, and trust you. And so you can accelerate the whole process and you can get them, to come back and buy from you. I'll never forget when I went to the Twitter conference in Los Angeles in 2008, Tony Robbins spoke to really wrap up the conference. And I'm not a big Tony Robbins kind of person. I usually don't get too excited about stuff like that. But he spent an hour and a half when he was supposed to only spend like 15 minutes talking to us. And one of the things he said, I will never, ever, ever forget. And that is, if you can get your existing customers to buy 10% more from you, to get them to buy 10% more frequently from you, and then get 10% new customers, you will absolutely transform your business. You will see exponential growth. And so it's easy for us to get in, I think, from a marketer perspective or for a salesperson's perspective, it's kind of the challenge of the acquisition, right? I mean, we kind of get seduced into winning that new piece of business with that new customer. Don't fall for it. I mean, you still need to have that as a good, healthy leg of your growth strategy. But if you can get your existing customers to come back and buy more often from you and even increase, what they're buying from you, incrementally, you're gonna do extremely well. Obviously, for certain businesses, there's this idea of churn, and so again, you're going to talk radically about different business models from brick and mortar businesses, restaurants, gyms, boutiques, places like that, versus, professional services where maybe something is $10 or $20,000 transaction or more, or then you look at home services where, you're only going to need a roof, hopefully once every 30 years, weather, cooperating. Mm-hmm. So how do you, as a roofer, how do you get repeat customers? Well, that's where you don't just think about your customer as buying that transaction. I mean, you need to look at them as how can you turn them into referral sources so that they are helping you to generate more revenue? Because again, they're going to accelerate through that know, like, and trust when they provide a strong recommendation to you, to your friends and family. So it's not always just getting, existing clients or customers to buy. It's how do you get them to refer you, especially when you don't have a model where they're going to be likely to come back and buy very often from you. Then you've got to get the referral process kicked up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dan, it's one thing to hope and pray your customers do some repeat business with you, but instead of hoping and praying, what kind of things can we do to make sure that they do repeat business with us?
Well, first of all, show your face sometimes would be great. That would be fantastic. Because truly, I think I have seen, at the risk of seeming old fashioned about it, I do think you always got to have that FaceTime with the customer. And I think I love technology as much as anyone, but I think too often we get in this trap of, oh, well, I put it on teamwork and I texted them, and then I, every now and then sent them a status report with all our analytics. Why are they not interested in, doing new stuff with me? Well, because you're a freaking robot. That's why. Because there's no humanity in any of that. So we fall in love with our own reports and things like that, but there's no communication in that. And they want you. And I think that's a thing that, I have certainly gotten in the car when I didn't have to and go driving out to wherever. But it was worth it every time when I needed to do that. And so I do think, for one thing, if you want to strengthen the relationship, and I have to follow this advice myself all the time, and better, is to basically use these tools like Zoom if you can't be physically with them, or Zoom or physically with them, or phone. Is really, I think you must do one of those three. We got in a vigorous discussion, as we often do, at one of our annual summits, and one of the people said, well, I text them because they're comfortable with that and whatever. I'm like, no. No, you cannot just text people and think that's going to be good enough. Like, you cannot just throw it up on project management tools like Basecamp and Teamwork and think that is not communication. That is just project management, and there's a difference. And that's, so that's the biggest thing I think that you can do, is make sure that you are constantly setting an agenda, a follow-up, a face-to-face. And that's probably the biggest thing. I mean, really, because they don't care as much about your tactical things that you're doing as much as they want to see you as a trusted advisor. You, not, oh, you have these tools and stuff. That's totally secondary. And then the only other thing I would say is, you constantly want to be educating and giving them some new things that enlighten them, even whether or not you are going to do that for them. I think it's always good for you to bring ideas to the table. The one thing that I've always heard, particularly when I was working in advertising agencies for other people, was, yeah, we had to go with someone else. It wasn't that they were bad. It's just all they did was do what we told them to do. They never came to the table with new ideas, ever. And I think we're all guilty of falling into that order taker hat. They need this is hot, and you're always going to have that. But I think you always do a service to yourself by bringing forth anything new that you have learned, tools and whatnot, processes, anything like that, and not shiny objects, mind you. That's not what I'm talking about, but things that you feel could be worthwhile for them to know, or even a relevant article that you come across for their industry. Those are all things that show that you care enough about their business and not just your own bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, I want to elaborate on that too, because I think, Dan, what you're talking about is very much geared towards somebody who's working on a retainer and a long-term type project basis. But, if you're a brick and mortar, you've got to give people a reason to keep coming back in. And so, Dan, you hit on the, so like education, I mean, or introduction of new products, staying top of mind, communicating with, I mean, if you've got a new pizza that you've just put out, let people know. If there's a new training regimen that you've put forth, a new workout of the day, get that out there to your existing customers. So I mean, it's a little bit of a challenge to talk about some of this kind of stuff, because, the nature of the business and, and the type of business can vary widely, but you really have to challenge yourself to what can I do to add value? It's always about adding value and always giving people a reason to come back.
I mean, that's especially, I didn't think about it until now. You're doing work with painters, Ken, I mean, you're talking about somebody who, it's not like next week I'm going to need to paint my house again.
Exactly.
So, I imagine that's quite a gap there where you've got to fill with, not just reminding them, but giving them anything to remind them about the value.
Yeah. Well, and a great book I read probably 2 years ago, it's called Subscribed, and it's talking about the subscription-based model. And the challenge is, how do you move? Everybody's becoming very comfortable buying on a subscription-based model. So even if somebody buys from you, once every 5 years, once every 30 years, if you're a roofer, you can still come up with innovative programs to get people to come back, some kind of a maintenance or a touch-up program, inspecting gutters and cleaning out gutters twice a year, if you're a roofer, things like that, because that keeps you in front of the customer. It helps you stay top of mind. And when you're staying top of mind, they're going to say, you know what, I need to have that room painted, or maybe it's time we need to stain our deck in the back of our house, or front of the house, I suppose. Just again, if you can find a way to be paid to deliver a service to stay top of mind, through a subscription type of model, that's ideal. HVAC contractors have mastered that. The annual clean and check twice a year. You come out for your furnace once, you come out for air conditioner in the spring. Who are you going to call when you have a problem with your heating cooling unit? It's probably the person, if you trust them, that you've been doing business with all along.
Absolutely. That's. I just want to wrap up on that, Dan. It's very interesting, because on the opposite side, at least in service, with what we do, the pressure is always to automate as much as you can. You shouldn't be doing manual tasks as much as possible. Let the software do the work for you. And slowing down to make that phone call or that Zoom call or that touch point is it's so important, and it's so counterintuitive to what we're kind of pushed to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think we were just talking about it recently. Is that the trick, I think, is always going to be, how do I make this personal and how do I scale at the same time? That's always been sort of the magic thing there. Gosh, I want to talk to these 5,000 people and I want to make it all personal. Well, I'll just change out the subject line and maybe their name. That's personal, right? That's, and so I think people have gotten, wise to that kind of technique, that it's not personal at all. It's just kind of, So I think if you're really going to, crack that code, the only way to do it, not the only way, but a pretty good way is to get a lot more selective and drill down on, how you're going to talk to people in a limited circle and really get to know their problems. And frankly, I think even with your existing customers that you're trying to get repeat business from, that's, I've never seen anybody do any ongoing stuff to their customers on a regular basis outside of the scope of what they're asked to do. So I'm not saying could you do an e-newsletter of one, but there's so much more opportunity to be personal in that way, towards your your existing people. I mean, we see. I think Ken was talking about it last week or something, where it was video, and how cool is it that what video is giving us right now with Loom and Bonjoro and a few others, BombBomb and some of those that really allow us to just get so personal and so quick.
Mm-hmm.
You can just kind of be like, hey, got this new program, or I thought you just want to know about it. Here it is. I'm taking you through you're in and you're out, and it's 1 minute and you're done. And I think that is really going to be where some insight is going to be for that scaling and personalization.
Absolutely. Ian, in this series of podcasts we've been doing the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about funnels. So what are the types of things a company can do to encourage repeat and referral customers as they reach the end of the funnel, or as we say in duct tape marketing world, the hourglass?
Yeah, yeah, and I would even suggest when people think of, there's lots of ways of looking at the sales process and the hourglass and the funnels and all the different ways we talk about it in business. The key thing to remember, and you're alluding to this in your question, Jen, is that it's a cycle. It never stops. So even if somebody reaches the bottom of your funnel, the bottom of the hourglass, you're putting them in the top again. And so that goes to what Ken and Dan were saying. So I'm gonna break it down into kind of, as I thought about this and think through it, there are two different activities. So creating repeat business or encouraging repeat business is one thing. Encouraging referrals is another thing. They do intermesh, but I want to break it down a little bit. And Dan talked a little bit about this, but you have to be a leader. Your customers have hired you because you're good at what you do, and you've proven that by executing on what you promised. So you have to be a leader. You have to choose to actually be proactive and present them with what's the next step for them. So, obviously in different industries and different services and different products, it's different. But you need to take that seriously and consider how you're going to present the next layer of opportunity for them, to ultimately create return on investment for them, or delight for them if it's a pizza and giving them a dessert with it. So show them what your recommendations are. In sales, it's often called cross-selling or upselling. But if it's done properly, it's serving their needs and serving their wants and showing them what they can invest in next. So presenting them with offers, presenting them, I loved what Dan said about education. It's your job to educate them and present them with what's the next service offering, or even reminding them of the catalog of products that you have. It's amazing, and I've fallen into this as well. It's amazing to think how businesses think our customers know everything we offer, whether it's products or services, regardless of the industry you're in. They don't. They know what they bought last. They might know some other things that surround that, but it's up to you to present that to them. The additional thought on that too is that your customer does not live in a you vacuum. And I've fallen into this. In fact, I lost a great customer because of this, because I was constantly presenting them with the results we were giving them. But I also forgot that my competitors in that arena were constantly bombarding them with sales and opportunities and offers and education. And so they do not live in a you vacuum. They are being bombarded, and it's a disservice to your own business and to them, because they have chosen you initially not to present them with what you offer them. I just wanted to also mention a couple things about referrals. So you have to ask for referrals. Don't be shy. I'm a pretty low-key kind of guy. That's how I got into business, and I thought it was wrong to ask for referrals. I thought, oh, my results will be enough that they'll just feel compelled to give me a referral, to do a Google review, to present a video of, Ian's awesome. I love what he did for me. The world needs to know. Sometimes your customers might be trying to keep you as a secret because you're so good, but you need to ask. You need to proactively ask them for reviews, for video testimonials. Some ideas, like in the B2B world, ask them how you can refer to them business. They will love that, and it opens up the topic. In the B2C world, equip them with how to refer to you. Tell them, these are my ideal customers. Here's a doesn't work right now with COVID, but here's a business card with an offer that's for a referral for you, or create a referral incentive program or a contest where if they refer, they get something back. But communicate. It's a relationship, like what Dan was saying. That was a long answer.
It was a long answer.
That's okay.
I got excited there.
I was like, you're not too shy to get into business. Come on. Paul, I want to turn the tables here a little bit. So we've been talking so far about how positive it is to encourage repeat customers, but is it ever okay to choose not to encourage an existing customer to keep doing business with you?
Yes. Oh, you want me to expand on that?
I would love you to expand on that.
That's it. Yep.
He wanted to offset Ian there.
That's
Yeah.
right. Good balance, eh?
Sorry, I used up your words, Paul.
Well, one example I can think of is if there's a change in direction. Let's say, I don't know if it's the best example. Let's say that you're a paving company and you decide that you're not going to mess with concrete anymore, even though maybe it's a little more profitable up front, but asphalt has a higher profit or has more profit in the long run because it requires more maintenance. So you decide you're not going to do concrete anymore, and you have a group of customers that you've done a lot of concrete paving for. You're probably not going to do any more work for them. Every business owner has had the nightmare client, the high maintenance client, that they're never happy. No matter what you do, they're never going to be happy. They nickel and dime you to death. So you probably wouldn't want to encourage repeat business for them. But it's rare. But yes, I would say it can happen. Hopefully it's not the norm, but it certainly can happen.
Mm-hmm. And in that case, you would recommend that company not take on any more of the concrete business just because it's not going to fit with their new business model, right? They're having a shift and they really have to stay true to that if that makes sense for their business. Is that
exactly?
Yeah. Great. Good. Ken, I want to flip over to referring, but referring as a business owner. So what are your thoughts on the business owner doing referrals based on, let's say, either suppliers they're working with or, really star freelancers, contractors, that type of thing? And just on that, what would you say to someone who would say, I have these great suppliers, I'd love to refer them, but they're also my best kept secret. So I'd rather nobody really know about these guys. What would you say in those kind of scenarios?
Well, I think, put yourself in their shoes. Do they want to be referred? And can you give them enough business to keep them happy? If you can, then maybe it's just a moot point, really. But I think as business owners, I think we all want other businesses to refer us. And so make it as easy as possible. It's kind of like we run into this all the time as online marketers, where people are like, but I don't want to tell people, what I do for my business, because then my competitors are going to be able to see it. And it's like, okay, well then nobody else is going to be able to see it either. So that's kind of the same principle in my mind. We talk about in duct tape, creating the perfect introduction in reverse, where you can actually, hand a document over to your trusted partners, your suppliers, your contractors, the other folks you work with, the other networking folks in like a BNI chapter or a chamber, and give them this document and say, fill it out because I want to be able to refer you. And when you do that, they're probably going to reciprocate. And likewise, you will want to fill out one of these documents that just talks about, here's who my ideal customer is, here's how you can refer me, here are the kinds of things we do. Just really, it's an educational document, but and I think you formalize the process. The other thing is, some businesses are much more aligned with a referral marketing strategy. And so, if you're expecting to get referrals, I think you'd better be prepared to give referrals. You may not be able to give them in the same volume, but yeah, I mean, it's crazy. You should work hard to refer those good businesses that you're doing business with. You're going to ask people to go do it by asking them to write an online review, about your business, or about their business. It's really the same thing. So yeah, I think it's a big deal to refer your partners.
That's the truth. I mean, that perfect introduction, Ken, is I think you got to make it so simple for them to the point of where I think, frankly, sometimes I even record them on video. I'm just going to get this down and I'm going to transcribe it because, it's not like they don't want to do it. It's just, life happens and it's like, well, I got to do that for Dan. But you're just like, you know what? I want to help you, and I'm going to get this down like in the next 15 minutes about these 4 questions. And I'm going to strip out the questions and then actually create a perfect introduction off of it. And then I'll put it in front of you. But they're so grateful when you do that, when you're doing it for them, that they're just like, oh, this is great. Nobody's ever done this. And vice versa. If you do that for yourself and say, copy and paste this in there, when you want to introduce me, hint, hint, then I think you've made it so easy to your point, because it's like, otherwise some of those introductions really, let's face it, they kind of suck. Like they're kind of like, Jen does marketing, Ian does construction. I thought you guys would get together.
Yes.
You should really, I think you guys will like each other. Good luck. Happy networking. Like, what is happening right now? Like, so like, we get those all the time. Make it easy for them.
Well, and think about who your golden goose referral sources are. I mean, those sources that just keep referring over and over and over again, and you can create content on your website. You can build funnels specifically to build a referral partner network of more people. So if you're a carpet cleaner and your ideal referral partner is a realtor, figure out what you need to do to build the relationship so that those realtors can refer you like crazy. And you don't need many of them in a lot of cases, but you still have to put a process in place.
One of the things when I heard you guys talking about this, it reminded me. I'm part of a BNI chapter, and one of the things I've learned through that process, if I won't go into what BNI is if you don't know about it, but it's a referral network, and one of the things I learned was to be specific. And one of the best examples that I saw of this was it was a promo clothing provider who wanted an introduction to a specific manufacturer. And so they were able to say to these, 30 to 40 people, does anybody know, and this is broad because it's in a group environment, but does anybody know someone at this business? And would you be interesting to make an introduction for me, which is a referral? And so I just thought that was brilliant. And that's another way we can do it, as if we have a small number of clients and if we have a small number of targets, we can say, to those clients, obviously over a phone call or a Zoom is better than through email, but hey, do you happen to know anybody at this business? Because they would be a fantastic referral for me.
Yeah, that's really, that is
good.
the best way. I think if you actually say, even if this is maybe too over the top for some, but if you go, hey, Ian, I know you're connected to so-and-so, would you be willing to make an introduction? I mean, you really can, even in a group setting, you can do that. I think even at a BNI or anything like that, where it's that time and you have that ask period. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, let me know later on if that's a person I can talk to.
Or just socially put them in the spot right there, and they can't say no.
They get super uncomfortable. Yeah, definitely.
Well, and Ian, I know you've built referral funnels very successfully. We all work on those, and so don't forget about. There is a time and a place to do marketing automation, and if nothing else, use the marketing automation to remind you or other key people in your business that they need to be asking for things. They need to communicate. It trigger certain activities. You can at least automate that process so that you can incorporate that human touch.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this sounds also positive, guys. But Dan, is there ever a time where?
Wait a minute. Why are you asking?
Well, because
I'm about to be a negative person.
No, we're gonna introduce a dose of reality here. Is what
This
we're gonna
sounds
do.
good, but now let's talk to you.
Okay, so we all made fun of putting someone on the spot, but in all seriousness, are there some times where it would be either too early or not appropriate to ask for referrals?
Yes, I think it's way too early. I mean, just look at LinkedIn. Go on LinkedIn right now. That's a perfect example of a too early refer. Like, I've really had this experience. Like, not only connecting and then pitching. We've talked about how bad that is. I have had a thing where I said no, I'm not a fit, and then that person in the same message just turned around and was like, "Do you know anybody else anyway?" I'm like, "No, like here's a stranger." Like and so I think you really kind of have to have that proof point in we all know that point in our relationships with somebody after a certain point in time, whether that's a customer or a strategic partner. I don't see that happening really after you've had some significant touches with them. I don't think you can walk into a room and trade some business cards and suddenly maybe you can do it after a one-on-one, but even that it's a hard thing to do. The one time I will say this much. I am not the person who I will never be a person who just says give and give and give and give, and the world will give back to me. And I don't do that. So I do think you can do it as soon as the first one-on-one with somebody if it's a prospective situation. And I think you can do it as soon as in a customer situation, the first kind of win that you had with them. Anything before that point is kind of inappropriate. Like, because you don't know them that well and you're kind of putting them on the spot, but I do think as soon as the first one-on-one, again, let's just pretend it's a prospect or someone who could be a strategic partner. Most people will be like, well, I'm a giver. And if you know me, then whatever you give, I'll just give and give to you. And I'm just like, yeah, no, because I'm going to give you like 15 and then you're going to give me 1 or something. Like, no, it's got to be a fair swap of I'll give you 1, you give me 1. And I am not opposed to doing that in the first one-on-one. So as long as you are doing it and you're not doing something where it's like, hey, Jen, great to be connected to you on LinkedIn. Do you know anybody who in your circle who needs me? Like, what? Do you actually go up to people at a party and start talking like that? Like, then probably you don't want to go all in like that.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Good. See, that wasn't too negative. You're doing all right.
Whatever.
You're doing all right.
Come after me, Optimus.
So, Ian, you have a whole process here. It sounds like you're really comfortable asking for referrals and whatnot, and you do great work. What happens in a situation where you've done some great work for a customer? They're going to re-up with you, right? Resubscribe, sign on for another year. You ask them for a referral and they say no. What do you do?
Well, first, I find my punching bag and I scream into my pillow. No, I
don't think I could ever see you doing any of that.
All I would say, I wasn't even going to go down that route, but like setting aside the joke, you have to handle your emotions, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, as a business owner who gives their all, assuming that we all do that, you have to handle your emotions and you have to be a little bit less sensitive about it. And I would suggest this is, we're consultants on this podcast, but not everybody is a consultant. So not everybody thinks or is trained to kind of consult with people. But this is where, as a business owner, you really have to become a consultant and ask them, and it has to be in a verbal or a visual way. It can't be through email very easily, but you have to get on the phone, you have to get on a Zoom call, something like that, or in person when we can get back in person. And it's, ask them why. Why won't you give me a referral? Sometimes we feel uncomfortable doing that, but it's a fair question. If you're delivering a fantastic service or product and they're delighted with it, which it sounds like in this scenario, then it's a fair question to ask why. And also to even go a little bit further if you're kind of hitting a roadblock and saying, well, what would it take what would I have to do in order to get a referral from you? Yeah, because I think it's also fair to we all usually explain this in some way, or some of us just imply it, that every business has a portion of their business built on word of mouth. And so all of us as business owners know that. It's fair to remind people of that, it's part of your entire sales process that your customers give referral. I would also add to that that I wouldn't press them. This is a relationship. You have to have some form of emotional intelligence when you're interacting with people. So that's why the question why is a good one. But it would just be a matter of gently probing rather than pressing. But I love that question about, what would it take? What would I have to do to get a great referral from you?
And one thing just to piggyback on that, there are people who want to help you more than you know. And I think we all think, oh, I'm bothering them or something like that. Particularly, I think for the strategic partners, the people who maybe you don't even know are potential strategic partners and they want to be. So, for example, I mean, we all go through this as entrepreneurs and we ride the roller coaster of emotions. And one day I was like really down on myself sitting across the table from somebody, and I'll never forget it. She goes, "Why would you rob me of the opportunity to help you?" She's like, why would you take that away from me? I want to help you. Why aren't you letting me help you? And I said, well, I just figured you'd do it. And she goes, well, I need to know who it is that you want to meet. I know a lot of people, but I know I want to help you too. So, it's educating them all the time, but more people want to help you than you realize. And that's a good way to go into it.
I'd agree with that, Dan, but I would have to say that there's we have to be respectful of this, and what I mean by that is we've run into some instances where folks will say, look, I'm not doing the online review thing, but I will not hesitate if you need to use me as a reference in an email or something like that. Absolutely no problem. But, I do not want my face, my name, out there on any website or anything like that. So there has been that. They still want to help you, but they just don't want to, make a song and dance about it. So, we have to respect that as well.
Absolutely.
They've done that?
Oh, yeah.
I only had that happen once.
Yep. Yeah, we've had it. And we've had it with clients. Yeah, happy to refer you, but not like, leave you an online review. And then also too, it depends what kind of companies you're working with. Some of the larger companies, we've come across this in larger companies, not allowed to speak on behalf of the company. So just, not even allowed to give a review or, something public like that, but, happy to talk you up in person. So
here's what I would say though.
You're astounded by this, aren't you?
I've only had
controversy.
I've only had it happen once. And when it did, I was like, really? Okay. And but no, that's fine. I mean, then here's what has to happen. You have to really find some other things about that client that you like besides the money. Like, because if they're not going to review you or they're not going to give you a referral, you better find they better be really enjoyable, because money's not going to be enough. If they're not going to do any reviews or any referrals of you at all, then yeah, you better be like, yeah, this guy's really cool though. I like working with him. There's an emotional reward. You got to have that reward somewhere for yourself. Yes.
I would disagree, but
we got to move on. We got the disagreement.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because, if the end result is, I need a review. I mean, I don't know about that. What about the end result of being like, we help this business grow? This is so great. This is satisfying. They're coming back.
I'm not saying like, don't, they're a bad customer if they don't give you a review. That's not it.
They're just bad.
If they don't give you a review or referral, that's fine. But then there has to be something else that fulfills that gap for you, because they can't be, some people, they do just take these clients as a transactional kind of thing. Well, they're paying a lot, so I'll put up with anything. And I just don't think that's enough. Like, I think you got to have something else of fulfillment to complement that. So if it's not a review or it's not a referral, then what else is there? There has to be something else. And as you just said, If it's an emotional reward, I feel good about this, and they appreciate it. Do they say thank you? Do they say, because that matters. So as long as they do that, then I think that's that. Then you can get by with it and feel good about it. Right?
Okay. Anybody else?
There are a lot of very successful businesses that are pretty transactional, where both parties are getting value that, people are just, they're not always going to take the action. I mean, some people are going to be more comfortable doing it than others. Some people don't have the ability to get online and leave you a review. So I mean, for your business, that may make sense, but for every business, and if you literally see, 150, 200, 300 customers a day, different model, different process.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I'm just glad that we had to get one of those disagreements in there. Ken always loves it when we throw down.
That's right. Paul, we're going to go over to you. You've been too quiet here. So it's great to get the referrals, right, from other business owners or from previous customers, that kind of thing. But what if you get a referral and it turns out you don't want to work with this company or this person? How do you handle that? Are you obligated to go forward anyways? What are your thoughts on that?
That's an interesting question. I'd say no, you're not. You could probably ask 15 different people this question and get 15 different answers. And I think to some degree, how you handle it comes down to diplomacy. So it's probably not the best question for me. But
at least you're honest. That's great.
But first of all, is if you and the person that gave you the referral know each other fairly well, you would hope that they wouldn't refer you a wingnut. But if it does happen, I think that's kind of how you phrase and set the discovery. That's kind of what the discovery call is for. If you realize during this process that you're not going to be a good fit, that's part of the reason for the discovery call. And you can say, look, I just don't think we're going to be a good fit. And you would think that the person that referred them would understand that. I know if any of my friends referred someone to me that I just knew we weren't going to work together, they would understand that. So it's the short and sweet answer as far as that go. But yeah, I would say no, you're not obligated to, because ultimately you have to do what's best for your business as well. And if you and this other person aren't going to work well together, then no one's going to benefit in that relationship.
Fair enough. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, in real life, you only have to be set up by your friends to realize, like, I don't think you know me. Like, why did you send this person my way? So it happens in business too. So
It does.
Good.
Yep.
Well, guys, we've gone a long time today. This is probably a good place to wrap up. Thank you for guiding our listeners on this important topic, creating repeat customers who refer you. And we'll see y'all next week.
See you.
See you.
Bye-bye.